Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Welcome to another episode of Chai Time Data Science. This episode is a conversation with one of my great friends and mentors from the fast.ai community, someone who has helped me not just during my learning path, but also during my professional path as a machine learning freelancer. This is an interview with the machine learning freelancer Tuatini Godard. Tuatini has a background in computer science with a master's degree. He has also software engineering experience. In this episode, we talk all about freelancing in machine learning, how to get freelance work, the downsides and upsides of freelance, and the tricks of the trade of creating a profile and communicating with the clients. Also, if you'd like to get in touch with Tuatini for a freelance project, you can find all of his contacts in the description of this podcast. Enjoy the show. Hello, Tuatini. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and joining the interview series for the second time.
Hi, Sanyam. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So today you're working as what people would think to be the picture perfect life for any coder. You're traveling the world and working on the move, which we'll just get to in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us how did you get interested in machine learning at first? Like, what made you, as you mentioned, quit your software dev job and shift to this field?
Yeah, sure. So at first, 4 years ago, I was an Android developer, and I worked for
Mhm.
a small startup. And the thing is, when I started working, the work was really great. I'd say because I would start everything from scratch and add new feature and stuff like that. But at some point, it started
Great,
getting boring because at some point you only start to do maintenance stuff, and everything
great.
start to get boring basically. And so
It got repetitive.
yeah, yeah. Very repetitive,
Yeah,
yeah, because you're only fixing bugs and maintaining stuff basically. So at that point
great.
I started to look for new opportunities, and the moment where I started to look for these opportunities was exactly at the moment where deep learning started to boom. And
Great.
I didn't know about that field at all. Then I started to get interested in
Mhm.
it, and when I started doing stuff on Kaggle and seeing how things works, I got
Yeah.
immediately bumped, and so I decided,
You got the Kaggle bug.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Great.
and then so I decided to tell my boss at that time to that I wanted to quit to be on what we call in France unemployment benefits. Because when
Great.
you quit a company, you can get unemployment benefits for 2 years in France if you work for 2 years.
I see.
And so I was kind of
Okay.
like surviving on that stuff. And
Mhm.
so I've learned data science from day one when I was unemployed. And
Great.
after 1 year and a half, I've got into freelancing.
Yeah. And to give the audience insight, I'll also have your profile link. But you have about 2,200 hours of experience on your profile on Upwork, so that really speaks for itself about your hard work. Um, I also wanted to ask you about during this 2 year study plan of yours. You got started with freelancing towards the end. So, what made you pick freelance side of work over what we call the job, the standard job?
Sure. So I wanted to experience it at first because I didn't know about that word at all. But it's
Yeah.
a bit daunting at first because when you're used to have someone behind your back telling you what to do, well, it was not really the case in the startup when I was.
Right.
I was like used to manage myself, I'd say. So
Mhm.
when I started freelancing, well, of course, it was a whole different world because it's not just about managing yourself, but it's also about managing your time, marketing yourself.
The deadlines
Yeah,
and all.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not like the stakes are not the same. When you miss a
Right.
deadline and you're an employee, like it's okay, but when it's a client, go ahead and explain to your
Yeah.
client why you missed the deadline.
So you sort of like have complete ownership as you've
Yeah,
experienced
exactly,
over all the projects.
exactly. And one of the
Yeah.
the most frightening part that I encountered was, being having the complete ownership of the project. And when you screw up
Yeah.
something, well, you screw
Mhm.
up something, like you basically have to tell your client you're the one who's responsible for that. And sometimes it can be hard because if you're an employee, you can
Yes.
still rely on your team, and I don't know, but it's not the same thing. I can't explain it
I
with
assume like
words, but
yeah, I assume for a, like even a startup, they might have a person handling the communication, but if you're freelancing at least by yourself, you the person who has to communicate it to the client, also work on the code. So that's really the challenging part.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
So any like comparisons in your mind, like in terms of ownership compared with the startup world and freelance, like which one would you still prefer? Is it still freelance?
Still freelance, yeah, because apart from the difficulties that you can encounter along the road,
Right.
uh, there are
Yeah.
so many advantages of being a freelancer. Well, it also depends what kind of freelancer you are. You could be a freelancer
Yeah.
who's working in the offices of your client, and
Mhm.
this kind of freelancer I didn't want to be one of them. uh, and so I decided only to go remote because in the startup I was work for the startup I was working for, it was it was 100% remote. So I've got used to that, and I've got used to manage myself.
Yeah.
So when I started freelancing, the first mission I had was not remote because I just wanted to get a feel of what it looks like, and I just jumped on the first mission I could find. But then I
Makes sense.
decided after that one that everything following it would be remote only.
Okay.
Uh,
So, over the past few years, you worked on many great projects, I'm sure. So, do you have a favorite, or could you tell us about the kind of projects that you worked on?
mm, well, actually, I didn't work on that many projects, but
Hmm.
actually, the one I'm currently working on is one which is fulfilling me because it's actually
Yeah.
about detecting skin cancer in digitalized skin tissue, I'd say, to make things sample.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's really fulfilling in the fact that well, you're really working for something meaningful, and not
Yeah.
for, I don't know, whatever mobile app which can do I don't know how to explain that, but this work is really fulfilling. And at the same time,
Detect hot dogs or not hot dogs, for example.
yeah, yeah. And at the same
Yeah.
time, it's not it's well paid, I'd say. It's not a
Right.
very high pay, but it's well enough for me. So I don't have to
Got it.
complain in from any sides of the project.
Got it. So you're also like, I know that you're interested in interesting projects over well-paying ones. So could you tell us about the motivation, that what kind of projects generally would pique your interest?
The kind of project that will wake my interest will be project which revolve around, I'd say, climate change,
Right.
around medicine, like the one I'm
Hmm.
basically doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there is a last one. but I can't really remember. I I'd say these two are the most fulfilling project for me. But at the same time, I would lie saying that a well-paid project is not fulfilling either. So if it's a well-paid project and it's not in one of the area that I'm interested in, well, I can probably start it. Yeah.
Right. So that's also great. People think about AI as something that can do all these techie things, but as you said, like you're already working on this medicinal domain, that too, as a freelancer, and you're also looking forward to working in things that might impact the environment. So that's really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now I want to dig deeper into the life of a machine learning freelancer.
Mhm.
So could you tell us what a day in your life looks like? Are you coding from a different beach every every week from a different
Well,
city? How does it work?
I don't know who's the guy who told you that people are coding from the beach, but he's a total idiot. Because you will be very,
Okay.
very stupid to code from the beach because you will put sand in your keyboard and stuff like this. So definitely not a good
Yeah.
idea. But
Yeah.
yeah, and when people are saying you're coding from different beach, you're not you're not physically coding from the beach, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, you're coding from many different countries. Depending on
Indeed.
the visa you can get in those countries, when you have a new EU passport, it's very easy to get around
Right.
because you can have 30 days in one country and then you move to the next one. So
That's right.
for now, I'm in French Polynesia, and then I'm gonna move to
Mhm.
New Zealand, and then to Bali, then to Thailand, and from
Right.
there I didn't plan anything yet. Yeah, but
So kind of the perfect life in
I,
terms of what people would
it
imagine.
depends. Really, it depends because, like, I have a friend who's been doing that for 4 years now. But at some
Right.
point, you start to get bored of that life because, like everything in life, if you do something too much,
Indeed.
you
Yeah.
start to get bored of it. Like I'm sure that
Right.
in a 10-year period, I will be bored to do deep learning. Uh,
Right.
so what bores him is uh, having to move to another country every month. Uh, and
Mhm.
also relationships. When he meets someone, he cannot stay
Yeah.
with that person for too long before he has to depart to another country. So there is no long-term relationship that he can make, and also I don't know. He told me that this kind of life at some point is gonna bore you. So it's not just like
Yeah.
rainbow and unicorns. At some point you get bored, like everything in life. Yeah, but for
So
me it's just starting, so
like
it's okay.
yeah, and is this itinerary of yours for a couple of years, or is it just in for the next few months?
You mean the plan that I just said?
Yeah, your travel.
My travel is actually for the next 4 to 5 months, I believe. I don't remember quite exactly because, as I told you,
Yeah.
you have this visa issue. For instance, in Indonesia, I
Right.
can only stay for 30 days. Then I have to pay a fee if
Right.
I want to stay 30 days longer. And same
Mhm.
goes for New Zealand. It's 3 months, I believe. Thailand also 30 days, and same for the rest of the Asian countries.
Yeah, I think there are all of these challenges that people really don't understand about. First, getting a project with we'll just get to, but
Mm.
also once you have the project ready, you have a clientele, and then being able to work remotely. So, could you maybe tell us about a few challenges that you face in this setting, or things that people would miss out?
Well, the first challenge is when you get your client, and if it's remote, you have to make sure that it's not a short-term gig. Uh, if you
Yeah.
don't have a steady income, it's going to be hard for you to basically, I don't know, you know, be able to jump
Be
from
able to.
one country to another if at some point you don't have any more money, left in your bank account.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky to find that client. And actually, the client I found was with the help of my friend, whose name is James, and he's the one actually
Hmm.
who found the client, because he had a good Kaggle profile, and it's where the client
Yeah.
found him.
Hmm.
But yeah, if I didn't have this client, to because it's
Right.
been 1 year and a half since I started working for that client, and I had to make sure that he would employ me for, and he would hire me for a long time, before leaving everything
Right.
behind, like you cannot
Yeah.
just jump to another country if you have a short-term gig and then figure out you don't have any more money left, and yeah, you cannot even take a flight back to
Right.
your home country. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that must have involved like a lot of practice also to be able to, and a lot amount of dedication to be able to send your skills through to the client as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
Also, we keep talking about the internet issues, so that's I think another point that people would miss out.
yeah,
So do you have any comment on that?
especially in deep learning, actually, because
Yeah.
when you have to download a big chunk of data set, it's gonna be hard
Right.
depending on where you stay. Especially in
Yeah.
Asia, the internet is not that great, but
I can confirm that for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the thing that you could do is having a remote server. The We are lucky with my friend that our current client have a lot of AWS credits. So basically,
Hmm.
each time we have to generate the dataset and train our models on the dataset, we can just use
Yeah.
AWS and SSH to the instance, and we can
That's
download everything and keep everything in AWS, so we don't have to download everything locally. Uh,
got
so
it.
that way we don't need to have a very good internet connection. But when internet connection becomes an issue for you, you can still rely
Yeah.
on what we call co-working spaces, which are things
Hmm.
made especially for nomad digitals. It's the name that we
Right.
give to people traveling the world and working at the same time. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, basically you can just go to this kind of space and get a reliable internet connection. Well, of course, it depends
Mm.
on a lot of factors, but most of the time it works.
It's I think it's a better option than maybe working from an Airbnb or such a setting.
Yeah, you could probably find an Airbnb with a good internet connection and work from there, because
Yeah.
this way you will save on the co-working space, the money you will give to the co-working space. But there is another
Yeah.
thing that I just booked. I didn't try it yet, but people are saying a lot
Hmm.
of good things about it. Is what people call co-living, and it's basically a whole
Got it.
package, with both the homestay and the co-working space all together.
Sort of the startup setting in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Also, like I do remember that you had a remote setup earlier, so
yeah. But
it,
I've got to get completely rid of it. Yeah.
but due to problems, I assume, or did you also have challenges with it, like when you were traveling and you would have to remotely SSH into it,
Mm,
into your server?
I didn't have so many problems, apart from when the internet provider would cut the internet in my home country. But apart
Right.
from that, I've created a setup where I could remotely, activate the current. I don't know if you can say that in
Yeah.
English. Yeah, but basically turn on and off the current going into my motherboard, and by doing
I
that,
think it's called Wake on LAN.
huh?
I think it's called Wake on LAN,
Yeah,
I believe.
no, no, not Wake Online, because Wake Online, I'm not sure what I'm gonna say is correct, but I think Wake Online, you cannot like hard shut down. No, you can hard reboot a machine, and
Got
basically, if your machine is stuck, I don't know
Hmm.
if with Wake Online Wake Online you can basically reboot it, and so the setup I had
Yeah.
was basically controlling the current itself. So if I
Hmm.
had a problem, I would just cut the current remotely, and
Got it.
this way I'm making sure that my machine will shut down. And when
Yeah.
I'm activating it, I configured the motherboard so that when it receives current, it automatically
Hmm.
wakes up. Yeah,
Got it. I think you also written a blog post on it, which we'll have linked off in the
yeah,
description for those
definitely.
who also want to give this a try.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Now, also imagine that the task of like working by yourself can get lonely. So
Mhm.
even like compared to a standard setting where you have maybe a team you're working with in a startup or maybe a corporate setting. So how do you avoid the loneliness of freelance, as we call it?
Um, so yeah, it can definitely get lonely. Fortunately for me, I have my
Hmm.
girlfriend who's very often around, so I don't feel that lonely. But most people who are single are, I don't know, struggling with this. And another aspect of working remotely like that is you can easily
Hmm.
get into the bad habit of, for example, not exercising. Like you would stay at your desk for the whole day, and
Becoming lazy
yeah,
essentially.
exactly. Because when you have an office, you still have to move to that office every day, so you are still exercising a bit. It's not that much, depending on the person and the distance to the office, but you're
Yeah.
still moving, and when you're working remotely, it can get difficult to motivate yourself to exercise at the end of the day, and as a result, you can start to get a bit fat, like I did. And it can be very detrimental to your health, because
Hmm.
you don't even have to commute, to your office, because your office is your home. So
The office is your desk.
yeah, exactly. So you basically
Yeah.
just wake up, go to your desk, and you're done for the day.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, like you like to play video games in the evenings, that doesn't arrange anything, like I don't know. and
I
and
think I sort of
yeah.
take both of those categories. So working from my desk and playing video games. So
Yeah.
definitely one of those.
And one of the tricks that I found to be able to exercise without my own consent was actually
Yeah.
to travel the world, because if you have to leave the country every month, it also means that you have only a month to visit the country. So it means that every weekend you have to get around walking to visit the country, and then when you get to the airport,
That's
it's also a lot of work. So in a
yeah.
way, it's kind of exercising, like maybe not
Yeah.
in a good way, but it helps.
Got it. Um, so going back to the question of getting projects, like could you share a few tips maybe on what are the best ways to getting a freelance job or project, as you call it?
Mm, personally, I'd say build your portfolio, and also learn to market yourself. For my case,
Hmm.
I was very lucky because the first freelance mission I had, it's actually a guy who came to me, and even if I knew I wasn't a good fit for his mission, he
Right.
still wanted me to he still wanted to have me on his mission. And of course that
I
was a
see.
total failure because it was my first mission. But then the
Yeah.
second client is still the one that I have today, and this second
Hmm.
client actually was found by James, my friend
Hmm.
James, and he found him, like I said, through Kaggle. And so
Right.
basically, thanks to his good profile on Kaggle, he was able to
Hmm.
get this client. But in this world where there is a lot of competition, especially when you're freelancing, like on Upwork and other websites like this,
Yeah.
it's very important.
Other like I assume the alternatives would be freelancer.com.
Freelancer.com. yeah. So basically, yeah, you have to have a good portfolio. It doesn't mean necessarily
Hmm.
to get a good Kego profile, but it surely helps. Um,
Got it.
and of course, I'm speaking about my own experience from 2 years ago. Because it's been 1 year and a half since I started working for my current client, and I didn't switch to another client since then. So maybe what
Okay.
I'm saying right now is a bit outdated. Maybe Kaggle has changed in a way that people don't look at it. But you have to do your own research
Mhm.
basically. But the core idea is that you have to get something which differentiates you from the other, and something that a client will be willing to accept as a proof of your skills.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think maybe blogging, Kaggle, and even open source projects would be a good fit for that
yeah,
case.
yeah. Well, it really also depends on the client you're going to target. Like if
That's right.
you're going to target a technical client, which we have,
Hmm.
doing
Hmm.
open source project are going to help. But if you're going to target
Yeah.
someone who just want to, like who just have money to throw at a project and doesn't really know a lot about technical stuff, and you have to do all the
Yeah.
technical stuff yourself, well, first
Hmm.
it's gonna be difficult for you to communicate with him, and second,
Right.
he's not gonna be interested in open source project because he doesn't understand what are these. So if he
Hmm.
this kind of person look at a Kaggle profile, it's much easier for him to determine if you're skilled or not because he just look at your medals.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it really depends on.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's similar to a job setting where some people would want 10 years of experience, some would want a master, some would be happy with even a Kagler. I think
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
It, of course, varies. I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as
And
for degrees like master and stuff, my friend James
mhm,
don't have one, I believe, and he still found
yeah.
a client. So if you don't have a master, I do have one, but I didn't use it. Well,
Hmm.
my client, I think, is not even aware that I have one. So
Yeah.
if you don't have one, if you don't have degrees, don't be discouraged by the fact that you're not gonna find any clients. If you're working hard at it and you make a good online presence, I'm sure you're gonna
Hmm.
find some really fulfilling jobs.
Got it. We'll also have James' profile linked off in the description. So I think the basic point is be to be able to communicate your skills through. If you have a master's, that wouldn't stop you from doing this. But even if you don't have a degree,
Yeah,
you have to somehow make up for it to be able to communicate to the client that hey, I do have this amount of experience
yeah,
through
exactly.
projects or
Yeah,
via these blogs or via these Kaggle competitions.
yeah, yeah. To be honest, my master like really didn't help me like not even once. I believe, like in my whole career, I was always
Yeah.
evaluated on my skills. Like even when I got my first job in the startup where I developed an Android application, they
Right.
asserted my skills on a technical interview, but they didn't
Hmm.
really care much about my master degree. Yeah, because today, it's
That's and
like everyone can have a master degree. If you
yeah.
like if you have rich parents, you can sometimes you can even pay for the degree. Like let's be honest, you can
Yeah.
literally have parents who pay for the degree because
I
I
mean,
saw people in my own school who didn't even know how to code to create a single line of code, but still got their degree,
right.
even if it was
That's
a computer science degree, Right.
yeah. I think like a university, not naming any, would be happy to like have students who can just pay the fees, but they don't really keep a check on the skills as long as they're getting grades or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it depends on the school.
Also, I think you have a master's in computer science background, if I
Yeah,
remember
yeah, I
correctly.
started programming at the age of 14, but most of the things that
Wow.
I've learned by myself, and I didn't want just to follow what will be taught in in the school, basically, you know.
in a university
Yeah,
situation. Got it. So that's a great amount of wisdom. Thanks for the honest comment there.
yeah, yeah. So don't
Um,
be discouraged if you don't have any degree. I'm sure you can. James was able to do that, so you can surely do the same.
yeah, got it. So I also want to talk about being able to convince a person
Hmm.
about the project requirements. That hey, it's not a 10-day thing. You can't just do model.fit.
Hmm.
That's not how machine learning works. Because clients come from all different
Hmm.
backgrounds. They might be technical business people.
Yeah.
So how do we communicate our project requirements and skill set best that
Mm,
situation?
for my client, I was very lucky that he had a technical background, so he could easily like understand the in and the outs of, you know, programming and doing AI and stuff like this. Um,
Right.
but basically, what I told my client was
Mm-hmm.
that I would do everything from A to Z to Z.
Mm-hmm.
If he needed something to be done in the project, either I will do it, or I will point
Mm-hmm.
him to a profile which is required for this task, you know. And so far, like
Got it.
I've done with James, the machine learning part and the data engineering part. I don't really know what the you know the limit between the two, but we merged them together. I also had
Yeah.
to create the GUI interface with Electron.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really touched on all the basically the aspect of the project, you know. Like I did
All aspects of the data science
yeah,
pipeline, I
and
think.
even beyond data science, like I had to do the DevOps thing. I had to generate the report every week for him to be able to tell where we're at, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff like this. And I know not everyone want to do that. A lot of person just want to
Mm-hmm.
be specialized in, say, data science, and don't want to do anything else. And it can work too.
Yeah.
Like James currently have two clients, and for one of his
Mm-hmm.
clients, he's only working on the data science part. And with our common
Got it.
client, I'm doing most of the software engineering stuff, and he's really
Yeah.
focusing on the data science stuff because he has more experience than me, and
Mm-hmm.
so we are kind of complementary, you know. So it's great, and also having finding a good partner that you can put your trust
Bounce
in.
idea.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is very essential because you can still like rely on him if you have problems or of some like and vice versa, you know. Like for instance, I will
Right.
have to travel with my parents in
Mm-hmm.
2 months, and so
Yeah.
I have to take some time off, you know, but the client is not taking any time off, so I'm counting on James to be able to handle the client without me during that period, you know.
Yeah.
And same goes for me if he has to take some time off, basically.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. That if you might want to pick working in a team remotely, a remote team situation, maybe with a business partner,
Yeah,
which might like complement the loneliness as well,
yeah,
and like
definitely,
the challenging aspects.
definitely, yeah.
Also interesting that it's you can also like get exposure to not just data science, and if you're up for the challenge, even all of these other tasks that you mentioned. And I know that you learn on a as need per basis. So like, did you have a experience in these things before, or did you pick these up as the requirements came up?
I don't. It depends actually. Like I had at first, of course, like everyone, to have to learn the whole stack. I'd say, you know, like the basic
Mm-hmm.
things, like how a neural network works, machine learning in general. But yeah, as new
Yeah.
requirements comes up, you know, uh,
uh, like the DevOps and the GUI side of things, for example.
yeah, like the GUI, for instance, I didn't work on. I didn't use JavaScript since I was
Mhm.
14. Yeah, and I picked it and learned it in one day, and then I started doing the
Wow.
GUI. But it's not that impressive when you're getting exposed to a lot of different programming
Mhm.
languages, and you're in the sphere for a long
Got it.
time. It's very easy to pick up on a new language because you already know all the patterns which are common to all the
Yeah.
languages. So like JavaScript for me was very very similar to Java, which I've done for a lot of
Mhm.
years.
As the Android developer.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I didn't it didn't really uh, I didn't have to take a lot of time to learn it basically. Yeah,
Mhm.
and if I encountered some difficulties, I would just Google it, and yeah.
Got it. Uh, so, can you share maybe one tip and one warning for someone who's looking to get started with freelance as a career option in the field of machine learning?
That's a tough question. um, so one tip: don't get discouraged.
Hmm.
Like I know, like for me, from my personal experience,
Yeah.
working alone, on learning things like over and over again and every day,
Yeah.
like for a year and a half,
Hmm.
can get discouraging at some point if you don't see any results.
Right.
I'd say one of the most important part of doing that was that I was also working on projects.
Hmm.
So you really have to find a goal when you're working toward. Well, you have to work towards that goal.
Yeah.
And when you're working towards that goal, you have to. Well, you will learn the stuff, yeah, that you need to reach that goal.
Right.
And if you don't have any goal and you're just learning for the sake of learning,
Hmm.
you can get discouraged pretty fast.
Also, like
And so
what I
one
call
of
the
the tips,
infinite loop
yeah,
of learning, where you keep going from one course to another, that also comes into play there.
yeah, it, yeah, like if you don't have a goal, there is no point. Like you will just jump from one course to another
Yeah.
and figure out, oh, already know that and this, but
Mhm.
I can't apply it anyway.
Yeah.
Like one of the good things that you could do if you don't have any project in mind is doing Kaggle competitions. Like
Hmm.
it's very a good way to stay passionate about data science, especially when you attack very meaningful competitions.
Right. I think there are a couple
Yeah,
of ones at the intersection of medicine also happening on Kaggle right now. So such competitions for sure.
yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And maybe a warning uh, for people who think of this as a perfect option.
As for freelancing,
Hmm.
I'd say work on your communication skills.
Got it.
Like for me, the
Hmm.
communication skills are maybe the most important thing that you could have.
Hmm.
That like if even if you are a very very good coder
Yeah.
and you're able to basically uh, create the whole project, like to respond to all the demands of your client.
Hmm.
If you're not able to communicate
Yeah.
the results and not able to be clear on the deadlines, the requirements and stuff like this,
Hmm.
there's going to be like a little tension between you two, because from one side the client won't understand what you're doing,
Yeah.
because he can't see what you're doing, like for him you're just doing magic for
Indeed.
certain clients.
But yet you're working, and that creates this tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from the other side, you know that you're doing the right thing, but if both of you cannot align on the same goals, and
Mhm.
be able to communicate clearly with the goal and the deadlines,
Right.
it's going to be tough. So if
Got
you
it.
want to be a good freelancer, be a good communicator, I'd say, at first.
Got it. That's a great insight. So
Yeah.
before we conclude, do you want to share maybe your top favorite resources or online courses for beginners to get started? Like you did say that masters might not do the thing, so any other alternatives that you prefer?
No, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm gonna tell you is probably a bit outdated because I
Yeah.
started, well, more than 2 years and a half ago. And
Mm-hmm.
when I started doing Udacity, which I
Mm-hmm.
definitely not recommend because it's overpriced for what you get. And I did Udemy courses from Super Data Science, which I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed and I really recommend because for the
Got it.
price you pay, you really get very good content. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe today they are a bit outdated, so I don't know. You have
Yeah.
to make sure that when you start a new course,
Yeah.
that it's not outdated. Because this field is moving so fast that you can easily start a course which is 2 years old and just fall behind.
Yeah, I think except for the classic Andrew Ng one, it's common to all of these courses.
Yeah.
I think FastAI does this great job of always being at the cutting edge. That's where I
Yeah,
met you also on the community.
first AI is definitely good. I still, even as today, I'm still following the courses of Jeremy Howard because as new papers come out, he's talking about
Yeah.
them in the part two of his courses that he's making every year. So it's
Yeah.
very a good thing to keep updated with the latest things, especially when you
Yeah.
don't have time to read all the papers that come out. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that if you start with fast AI, you really have to supplement this course with something else because
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not 100% certain about that. But to me, it gives you a big overview of how things works. But
Right.
there is a lot more around it, like even for deep learning.ai from Andrew
Mm-hmm.
Ng.
Yeah.
I didn't follow it, but from what
Mm-hmm.
I've heard from people, it's like
Yeah.
it's very math oriented,
Mm.
and less
Yeah.
oriented on the practical side. And
Yeah.
and when you're being a freelancer, you're more
Yeah.
interested into the practical side than the theory. So
Indeed.
yeah.
The client wouldn't care about the mathematical
Yeah,
side of
he
things for
doesn't
sure.
care if you've read the latest paper and got a 1.001 accuracy more than the last day. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't care about that stuff. He cares about results and results that
Got it.
works.
Got it.
Yeah,
So before we conclude the call, could you maybe tell us what would the best place to get in touch with you for projects for the listeners who might want to hire you for work, or the best place to follow your work?
you have my website,
Sure.
tuatini.me.
Which we'll have linked in the description also.
Yeah, and I think you can probably find everything from there.
Mhm.
It's not updated.
Mhm.
It's been maybe more than a year since I didn't update it.
That's common to all of us software engineers for sure. Yeah.
But you can find all my contact information in there.
Mhm.
You can also send me an email from there.
Got it.
So yeah, everything is there.
Great. We'll have all of the details in our podcast description. And thank you so
Yeah,
much for joining me today for the second interview.
thanks to you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.